did you know that non-compliance with CSDD could cost the companies millions? It's not just about avoiding fines, it's about staying ahead in a rapidly evolving market. Let's dive into why this matters. The Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive, CSDDD, is an EU regulation that requires large companies to identify, prevent, and mitigate human rights and environmental risks throughout their operations and global supply chains. To prepare for CSDDD compliance, the company should focus on 3 key areas. First, embed due diligence into operations by assigning clear responsibilities and engaging top management. Second, strengthen documentation and record, keeping to track risks, supplier actions, and mitigation efforts. Third, ensure legal alignment with EU requirements and be ready for enforcement measures. Early action in these areas will position the company for successful compliance. Let's start by looking at the operational side of CSDDD compliance, step by step. Step 1, establish governance and responsibility. First, it's essential to build the right internal structure. That means forming a dedicated sustainability due diligence team or task force. This group should include members from procurement, compliance, sustainability, legal, and operations. But most importantly, senior leadership, including the board, must be actively involved. Why? Because under CSDDD, oversight and resources at the highest level are not optional, they're expected. Step 2, integrate CSDDD into corporate policies. Next, update internal and external policies. This includes refreshing the Supplier Code of Conduct to reflect CSDDD standards, such as banning forced labor, ensuring safe working conditions, and enforcing environmental controls. Company can build on existing frameworks like the RBA Code of Conduct, aligning with ILO conventions and ESG best practices. Also, embed due diligence into functions like procurement and product design, making sustainability part of everyday operations. Step 3, map the supply chain and conduct risk assessments. Then move to full supply chain visibility. Companies should catalog key suppliers, identify those in high-risk countries or sectors, and conduct structured risk assessments for both human rights and environmental impacts. Pay special attention to issues like conflict minerals, chemical use, and labor practices. Focus first on Tier 1 suppliers, but don't overlook upstream risks. Step 4, implement preventive and mitigative measures. Once the risks are mapped, it's time to act. Develop clear, actionable mitigation plans. This may involve operational changes, closer supplier engagement, or updated sourcing practices. The goal is to reduce harm before it occurs, not just react when it's too late. Now, let's continue with supply chain-facing actions. Steps 5 through 8. Step 5, supplier audits and capacity building. Companies should strengthen audits for high-risk suppliers, ensuring they cover labor rights, safety, and environmental compliance. Where issues are found, suppliers must submit corrective plans with clear deadlines, and follow-up is essential. Alongside audits, companies should train suppliers on key topics like worker safety and human rights, potentially using NGOs or external experts. Step 6, supplier contracts and leverage. Contracts must include CSDDD clauses, requiring code of conduct, adherence, audit access, and termination rights for serious violations. This boosts legal protection and signals commitment. Companies should also partner with industry peers since shared suppliers are common. Joint initiatives through groups like RBA can drive broader compliance. Step 7, technology and traceability. Technology can improve visibility. Companies should use platforms to track supplier compliance and risks. For material traceability, tools like blockchain and digital product passports can verify sourcing, especially for minerals. This also prepares the company for EU policies like the Digital Product Passport under ESPR. Step 8, environmental impact mitigation. Environmental action is key. Companies should reduce emissions, eliminate hazardous substances, and manage waste across its operations and supply chain. Expanding carbon tracking to include suppliers and replicating carbon-neutral products shows leadership. Collaborating with suppliers on energy efficiency and renewables will also help meet CSDDD's climate expectations. Now, let's wrap up with the final 4 operational steps, focusing on human rights, accountability, and climate action. Step 9, human rights focus. Company must ensure suppliers uphold fair labor standards, including safe conditions, fair wages, and reasonable hours. Following the RBA standard is a solid benchmark. Tools like anonymous hotlines or worker surveys can help flag issues early. If risks like forced or child labor are identified, the company should either change sourcing or invest in remediation. Step 10, grievance mechanism. A strong grievance system is essential for accountability. Companies should provide safe, confidential channels, like a hotline or portal, for workers, NGOs, or communities to report concerns. Ensure non-retaliation, publicize access in local languages, and create internal protocols for how complaints are handled and resolved. A functioning system supports early detection and will be seen by regulators as a sign of serious compliance. Step 11, ongoing monitoring and improvement. Due diligence must be continuous. Companies should regularly reassess risks and track key metrics, such as supplier audit results, compliance improvements, incident reductions, and climate progress. These updates should feed into quarterly ESG reports and be integrated into core business processes, like supplier onboarding. Step 12, climate transition planning. The company should formalize a clear climate transition plan aligning with the Paris Agreement and CSDDD Article 22. This plan should consolidate existing strategies, for example, SBTI targets, renewable energy use, and set measurable goals, such as reducing product emissions by 2030. Board approval and public disclosure are recommended. This shows both compliance and leadership in sustainability. These 12 steps cover the operational aspect of CSDDD, turning compliance into action and sustainability into impact. Now, let's move on to documentation and record-keeping practices. Proper documentation is a legal requirement under the EU's CSDDD, proving a company is managing human rights and environmental risks. To meet these expectations, a company should take these key actions. Due diligence policy documentation. Keep updated versions of due diligence-related policies, like the Supplier Code of Conduct or environmental policy. Make sure they're approved by leadership and published for transparency. Risk assessment reports. Every major risk or impact assessment should have a written report detailing the scope, method, findings, and next steps. These are essential for tracking progress and responding to audits. Supplier audit records. Maintain complete records of supplier audits and corrective action plans, including issues found, timelines, and follow-up results. Also keep any relevant certifications like ISO 14001 or RBA audits as proof of supplier performance. Incident and remediation log. Set up a log to track serious supplier issues, such as labor abuse or environmental damage, and document how the company responded. This shows active management of risks and a commitment to remediation. Stakeholder engagement records. Keep summaries or minutes of stakeholder engagements, such as meetings with NGOs, community consultations, or worker interviews. These records show transparency and fulfill stakeholder engagement obligations. Grievance mechanism documentation. Maintain a log of complaints received, including dates, issues raised, investigation steps, and outcomes. Also record how whistleblowers or complainants were protected from retaliation. Monitoring and KPIs develop key performance indicators to measure due diligence progress, such as audit coverage, remediation actions, or supplier training. Track and maintain these metrics to support both internal management and external reporting. Annual reporting and continuous improvement. Publish an annual due diligence report detailing policies, risks, actions, and results. In addition, keep records of policy updates, target revisions, and third-party assessments to demonstrate year-on-year improvement and a dynamic, evolving due diligence process. Strong documentation in these areas is critical for compliance, transparency, and continuous improvement under CSDDD. Now that we've covered documentation requirements, let's turn to the legal and compliance considerations that companies must address under CSDDD. With CSDDD's far-reaching implications, companies, especially those outside the EU with a European presence, must proactively address several legal and compliance obligations to minimize risk and ensure readiness. Appoint an EU representative. Non-EU companies must designate an EU-based representative. This entity will act as the liaison with EU authorities. It can be a regional headquarter, a local subsidiary, or a third-party service provider, but it must be authorized to receive legal notices and respond to regulators. Monitor national laws. While CSDDD will apply EU-wide, each member state may add extra rules. Countries like Germany and France already have similar laws in place. Companies should track developments in major markets and seek local legal advice to stay compliant during the transition. Review contracts for risk transfer. Supply agreements should include clauses requiring suppliers to follow human rights and environmental laws. Contracts may also include indemnities to protect against legal or financial consequences caused by supplier violations. This also reinforces the company's expectations around cooperation in due diligence. Assess liability and insurance coverage. CSDDD introduces civil liability risks. Companies may face lawsuits in the EU if they fail to prevent harm. It's important to review existing insurance policies and consider expanding liability coverage. Having a legal response plan and strengthening grievance mechanisms can help manage risks early. Data protection and confidentiality. Due diligence under CSDDD may require disclosing sensitive supply chain information. Companies should strike a balance between transparency and protecting business confidentiality. This includes safeguarding supplier identities and complying with data privacy laws when collecting personal data, such as worker interviews or manager contact details. Synergy with CSRD reporting. Companies may also fall under the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, CSRD, which overlaps with CSDDD. Since CSRD requires disclosure of due diligence efforts, legal and compliance teams should align both directives. Coordinating data collection, reporting structures, and internal responsibilities can streamline compliance and reduce duplication. Stakeholder complaints and legal risk. CSDDD opens the door to legal complaints from NGOs, unions, and affected communities. To reduce legal exposure, companies should engage stakeholders early, address concerns proactively, and follow sector-specific guidance where available. Doing so strengthens legal defenses and demonstrates good faith compliance. These final considerations round out the legal framework companies must prepare for under CSDDD, ensuring both transparency and protection. In summary, CSDDD compliance rests on 3 pillars. First, integrate due diligence into everyday operations. Second, keep clear records to show what actions were taken. Third, ensure legal readiness, from EU representation to liability management. These steps build a strong, defensible sustainability strategy. Now is the time to act, not simply to comply, but to lead with purpose, take responsibility across the value chain, and shape a more sustainable future.